Welcome back, YouTube, to another video. This will be the final video of my going through the 3rd British Infantry Brigade and my guest units. And like I say, this is the final video, and I'll be running through the artillery and there's the 95th Rifles, which are a guest unit. And then obviously my 2 British units of cavalry, which again are guest units because being an infantry brigade, they didn't have any attached cavalry. So let's start off with the artillery. So we'll start off with the brigade commander, or the Divisional Artillery Commander, which is a stand which is made up out of figures that I had on hand. I came up with the idea of using footed figures as the brigade commander for this unit, as I had a leftover officer figure from my Victrix cannon set, and I obviously had the chap from the Waterloo set, and I thought it would make quite a nice little vignette to have the artillery commander holding his telescope, and he's kind of liaising with an infantry officer as to where to direct fire, and whether he thinks it's a good enough proposition for him to aim his guns in that general direction. Now, did I write? No, I haven't written the commanding officer's name on the bottom of this, but I believe it could be a captain who's in command of this division. But quite a nice little command base, I think. And as I don't have horse, I've forgotten the name of them now. I don't have any way of well, I'm definitely not going to be buying any sort of horse based ways of tugging the cannons around, mainly because of the amount of space that they'll take up and their expense. Most of my artillery will be man-handled, and although I suppose you could use, you do actually get 3 of these in the Victrix, artillery sets, and this is actually the only one I ever bothered to build up. I suppose you could somehow, like, I don't know, turn a stand of artillery around and attach that and say that it's limbered up, perhaps, something like that. Perhaps get one horse to mount it onto, or whatever. I don't know. But that was something that sort of crossed my mind as a use for perhaps using these. Other than that, they could be used as just scenery. But like I say, I've only ever been bothered to actually build one because they're quite fiddly to put together. So let's go into the artillery. Now, I have mentioned this before, that the actual divisional artillery for this particular brigade, historically, is actually 2 batteries of 9-pounders. This I didn't realise when I was originally building my cannons. So what I did was, because I had a Warlord 6-pounder, I made a second 6-pounder to make 1 battery, and for the second batteries I made 9-pounders just by fluke, and then obviously I found out that they obviously have 2 batteries of 9-pounders. So what I really kind of wished that I did was that I wished that I made this second 6-pounder into a howitzer, and had like a battery made up of 1 cannon and 1 howitzer. Now, on the 9-pounders, they do actually only have 1 howitzer in the battery, so I don't think it makes too much difference to have an actual howitzer model for that. You know, these a proper set of 9-pounders to complete the actual divisional artillery is on the books, and these guys will become a spare artillery unit that I can just use whenever. But that is the artillery components for my British, and the French way outnumber my British artillery, which is another reason for me to want to get another battery of 9-pounders and maybe a couple of howitzers, and then I'll split these two up and have one howitzer and one 6-pounder as a battery. That's my kind of rough plan at the moment. So let's go into a little bit more detail on these. Obviously this particular cannon is the Warlord one that came in the Waterloo box set. It has obviously 4 crew, where obviously in the Victrix sets you get that extra figure, the fifth, the officer. And because I didn't like the idea of having an officer on every base, I actually, when I came to do my Victrix one, decided that I have one officer per battery. So I actually put that, again, it goes with the 4 crew, and then obviously you got the extra officer figure to make that particular base have 5. And the other thing that I think I've done on this particular time round, as opposed to my British Army update, was that I have actually removed the out-of-date powder scoop tool that a lot of these guys were carrying. And I think the positions of the guys without the powder scoop in their hands is actually still pretty cool. So I think it worked. It was a good little fix, an easy fix, that I literally just snipped the tool out of his hand, and if it left an unsightly mark, I just painted it over with flash. But I think you can get away with saying that unless I told you he was holding a tool, you wouldn't actually guess that he was. So that is the Victrix 6-pounder from the Victrix British Artillery set, and you can see that on their base they've got this sort of grass berm, and that's kind of copied across on the first as well, on the first my Warlord cannon there. So that is the battery of 6-pounders. And we have a similar thing going on the 9-pounders too. So if we just bring in the one with the officer on, you can see there's the officer, and this chap was the guy that was carrying the tool, the powder scoop tool. And we can see that we have the loader in action on this particular base. So that is the Divisional Artillery for the 5th Infantry Brigade, or Division, sorry. So let's just move these chaps out of the way, and then we'll start going into the final 3 units, which are guest units, and can be added and taken away at will. And we'll start off with the 95th Rifles. So let's bring them in. These chaps I originally wasn't going to bother with, because it's one of those units that everyone does, and I'm one of those people that likes to stay away from the norm generally. You know, like if there's a particular film on and there's all this hype about it, then 9 times out of 10 I'm not bothered about going to see that film, and I'm definitely not one to follow the hype tree. Normally films that get sort of hype makes me even more suspicious of it, knowing how how woke the world seems to be at the moment. And the main reason why I ended up getting them was literally because I found the box set of Metal Warlord figures going like really cheap, and in fact so cheap that I basically couldn't help myself from getting them. And theoretically at the time, if I knew about it, which I didn't, I theoretically could have turned these guys into the first KGL and just swapped out the command figures, but I didn't. So these guys, the 95th, these guys will stay for now. I suppose another use for them is that if I really wanted to put a company of Jaegers, into my Hanoverian unit, I could basically just proxy a couple of bases, like for instance perhaps the command base and these two rifle bases here, and you could basically say, well, there's my two companies of Jaegers for the Hanoverian battalion. So they've definitely got their uses. Just give you like a quick overview of them. They're actually made up of not only the Warlord box, but also a pack of Perry's 95th. And again, the main reason how you can tell is because I didn't put extra backpacks on these guys. So the Perry's guys have got backpacks, and the Warlord guys generally don't have backpacks. But yeah, I was very happy with how these guys turned out. If you go back to my original video, I go on a bit about kind of, obviously they're kind of skirmishers, but I didn't really want to fully base them up as skirmishers. I wanted to kind of keep them in a sort of a battalion-esque order, and that's why they're kind of based in 2s and 3s rather than the normal 4. But yeah, I was very happy with how these guys came out, and like I say, I really didn't have plans to include the 95th originally in my army, but like I say, circumstances of being able to get that box so cheap. I think I got it for like, I think it was like £15, something like that. It was like ridiculously cheap, that I just couldn't, basically if I left it, I would never find it again for that price, sort of thing. And I've kind of, through trial and error, I'm the sort of person now that if I come across something that I really, really want, then I basically, if I can physically afford it, then I will get it, because I know that if I leave it, I'll never have that chance to get it at that price again. So that is the 95th, a guest unit. Now the final two units are cavalry, and of course these guys do count as guest units as well, and that's also another thing that I'm kind of lacking on as far as my army goes, to the fact that even with the two cavalry units that I have at the moment, I'm still lagging behind my French by a unit, but then I have two other unpainted boxes of French cavalry waiting in the wings to do. So my Brits are really kind of lagging behind. But here we have this was actually my second unit of cavalry that I added to my British. And we have the classic and in some ways disliked hussars. These guys were a pain in the rear to paint. They were a pain in the rear to put together, and I definitely got minimal amount of enjoyment out of doing these boys. But they are great figures. They're Perry's, and when they were complete and finished, I do really like them. And now these guys are I've forgotten the names, the Duke of Cumberland's Hussars. So they're actually a Hanoverian, part of the Hanoverian Cavalry Brigade. And I won't bother going into their story because they've got quite an infamous historical story. And these guys are commanded by a chap called Lieutenant Colonel Hake. And yeah, I was, these guys were a real pain to do, and I probably. It's funny because at the time when I finished these guys, I'd say, right, I'm never going to touch hussars again, ever. But there's something inkling in me to want to get some French hussars for some reason. But that's definitely for the far future, because A, I don't particularly want to paint more hussars, and B, it will give my French even more cavalry. So that is the Duke of Cumberland's First Hussars, and they were actually my second British cavalry unit. and they are Perry's, and they are great, great figures. I don't think you can beat the plastic Perry's cavalry. I think they're way far superior than Warlord when it comes to cavalry. Next up, we'll go for my very first British cavalry unit, which is the 11th Regiment of Light Dragoons. So let's bring these boys in. Like I say, my very first unit of British cavalry. I was very happy when I completed them. I think I did these guys, I think in December of 2018, I think. No, it would have been 2019 actually. So no, December of 2018. Like I say, I think I got them before. Well, actually, thinking about it, I think I didn't get them until January 2020 because I had them. They were meant to be given me to me for Christmas from my sister. And Wayland Games, even though they were ordered in early November, they didn't actually get to me until the middle of January for the following year. So you could say that I probably did these guys in sort of maybe January, maybe very early February. By the time I finished them. But yeah, I really do like my British cavalry, and like I say, they do drag quite a way behind my French by 1 unit at the moment, and it will be by 3 units if I get the my other 2. I think I have a unit of Cuirassiers and a unit of Dragoons sitting down in my mountain there, waiting to be done. So that is actually the end of this video now, because I've actually gone through everything that I've got in my British Army. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Obviously, if you've just come across my channel by fluke, feel free to subscribe. And if you're particularly interested in catching every video I do and not kind of coming across it by fluke, then feel free to hit the notification bell. I tend to do at most averagely 2 to 3 videos a month. Obviously doing this update here is like an extra sort of 4 videos, but generally it'll be anything from between 2 to 4 maximum in your average month. So I'm not going to be spamming up your email boxes with notifications of videos coming out every day. Yes, I can't remember if I mentioned this before, but I'm now up to 289 subscribers, so thank you very much I think I had a new subscriber yesterday, or possibly Friday, so thank you. I hope you enjoy the content, and I'll continue to watch all your videos, and I'll catch you all in the next one, and who knows what I'm going to be doing. It could be another vignette, it could be the start of my French, because I have 2 battalions left before I complete 3rd Corps. Who knows? So until then, catch you all next time. Bye bye.